Hello, guys. It's DannyDealz here once again. Thank you for tuning in to Un Poco Mas, the show where we give you just a little bit more. It is Saturday, March 18th, 2023. I am bringing you a special edition of Un Poco Mas. Want to talk to you once again about Tenax Therapeutics. Tenax Therapeutics, ticker symbol TENX. Friday was another rough day for the Tenax investor. The stock was once again held by computer trading. You can see that this stock has been in these very tight channels, and I think, basically scalping a tiny bit of profit off of these little ranges. It was 51 and a half to 53, and then that kind of compressed down a little bit, wedged a little bit, and then sold off. Big sell off down to, I think, 46 cents. Let me share my screen here. Forgot to do that. Let me put on my glasses so I can see what I'm talking about. But basically, we had, what would have been considered high volume, but the last couple weeks, moderate volume. Um, and you had the stock basically trading sideways, minus a couple of this big sell off here. Basically, was the only time the stock really moved. Otherwise, it was basically in this channel from 52 up to 53, and then it was in another channel here from oh, I guess 48 to 49, and then it popped up to 50 or 49 and a half. And see, we're trading in sometimes here in less than 1 cent channels now. This is a little bit under 49 down to 48.3. So we're only at a 0.6 cent channel here between the highs and the lows this is making in these little trading periods of I don't know. These periods usually last, say, an hour to 2 hours. Like this one goes 2 hours, and then this little sideways movement goes from, and it's generally on the hour the algo kicks in. Like this goes from 12, and then it ends at 2. And then it moves what it's going to do at 2. So at exactly kind of 12, or not exactly, but it dropped off, tried to algo drop the price down. You see it stepping down here, exactly 12 o'clock, basically. Nothing's trading, and then right there, the algo kicks in, wants to drop the price down and start holding it in these ranges, and then exactly 2 o'clock, the channel, not exactly, but very close. 2 o'clock it flips, and then almost exactly again at 3 o'clock, you see the algo kind of let go and accumulate a little bit here, sell off again here, and then you saw that huge buy again at the end of the day. I can't speculate exactly what's going on. I also can't say exactly what's going on with this huge dump. I mean, I don't think it's retail, obviously, selling that many shares down to 46, under 50 cents. I don't think it was an insider. I think it was the same hedge fund dumping. Just like you can do a pump and dump, you can do a dump and pump. You can get the panic selling first and get the buying after. It doesn't, as long as you're making money on that spread as the hedge fund, you don't really care, if you're buying first or selling first, or you're scaring the hell out of people, or you're giving them, penny stock wood or whatever it is. You know, it's you could do it in different orders, different ways to disguise what you're doing, but the bottom line is, 10x has been selling off. Basically, the recent history of the company is they were, have two drugs that were supposed to start phase 3 trials. There, one's hypertension, one's heart failure, both in the cardiology space, and they're both oral formulations of drugs that have been used for other things, and even one drug has been used, Levo has been used in Europe for this indication, for this specific type of heart failure. Um, and there are no treatments approved in the United States. But anyway, so they're supposed to start these phase 3 trials last year, ran out of money, couldn't raise money, um, engage Roth Capital to either, sell the company, get partners for the drugs, raise money somehow. They failed miserably, and the whole, the months that they were engaged in that process, the stock was being, absolutely destroyed. Like say 6 months ago, we've lost 86%, 87% of the company's value in the last 6 months. There was, once they couldn't get a deal, the stock had been driven down so far, they had to do a reverse split. And you say, okay, well, that's good. It'll kind of make the shorts let go. The stock won't be as easy to manipulate. The share count is dramatically reduced. And yes, that is normally the case. But then that's if a company has money. So what we saw then is a terrible offering because they just didn't have any other choices, I guess, aside from taking the company private, which didn't happen. I don't know. The insiders don't have the confidence. They don't have the money. Whatever the case may be, probably legally, that's fraught because there's all these probably older warrants, older stock options that I don't really know all the details of. But anyway, so we do this offering. It's just massive dilution. I think it's at like $1.80 a share, or it was, and then you have the same hedge fund that I believe has been shorting, and or multiple funds have been shorting and churning and dumping and basically pushing the stock down and making money as they do so, off of the retail investor, and also off of other institutional investors that dumped last time, a couple months back when the stock dropped from like 14 down to 8 or 12 down to 8. And that's when I first got into a fairly large position. I had kind of a feeler position until then. I said, oh, this is, institutions are dumping, a smart time to buy, because I obviously know more than the smartest financial people in the world. But that's why I'm here and they're up there in those beautiful penthouse offices. But in any case, I digress. The stock is was then basically, they bought the offering. The same hedge fund bought the offering, so they have all kinds of more shares, and so you take away a bit of their control with the reverse split, and then you give it right back with this horrible, massive dilutive offering. And you give away a ton of the company, for most of the company, for almost no money. We certainly don't have enough money to get very far in phase 3 trials. We should have somewhere over $10 million in cash at this point. But the great thing about this company is that there isn't a lot of debt. There's really no debt to speak of, and the expenses have been slashed to the bone. They got rid of the office space. They bought out the lease. So there's just a few key people basically working from home or from their other jobs or whatever the case may be. So we have a little bit of a cash runway here. We could probably start one of the P3 trials, and you know, usually when they're trying to crush a penny stock and, drive it into bankruptcy, or these short long hedge funds are destroying it down to nothing, want to accumulate all the shares and flip to long and make money that way. Usually it's because the company has debt. That's what's being crushed under debt. That's what's kind of unusual here, because you feel like these assets are worth quite a bit of money. There isn't a lot of debt. It's kind of an odd target. I don't think it necessarily started as a target. It might have started as a long investment, and then they smelled blood and went after it. But in any case, just a very tough week last week. If you look at this trend line I draw, we're slightly above the trend line here, but I just think that's because, it's like an elevator when you're in the top and you go all the way to the, bottom floor, then you go to the basement, you go to the sub basement where there's like, some strange looking guy doing industrial laundry or something. Like, where do you go from here? You're at less than $5 million market cap. And there's just like, there has to be a certain point where the stock puts in a floor. Now, we've been over here since, oh, I thought I saw a double bottom on the chart, but eh, it's very questionable. I mean, we bottomed here, we bottomed here, retested, came back, retested, came back, retested, and, remains to be seen. Hopefully consolidating. I just really worry about this stock because it's been a one-way street, and that way is down. But if you look at this trend line, you know, since way back in 2018, this trend line has just been pretty on point. Tested here to the upside, tested here, kept bouncing off as resistance. Then here in 2020, which it sort of flipped, and then it was riding above this trend line, finding support a little bit above it, and then breaking it a couple times and going back above, riding along below, and then again, finally, we're just back above it slightly, and I believe this could be a great time. The volume that's come into the stock has just been extraordinary. I mean, the stock was trading a couple 100,000 shares a day, and then 30 million, 50 million, 10 million, 30 million, 55 million, 12 million, 6 million. So, and then even on these very slow days, it was 4 and then 3 million. So while volume is decreasing, there's still a lot of volume to set up either a move to the upside or more likely another pump and dump by a crooked hedge fund with an imaginary Reddit army by their side. And the problem with the pump and dumps is you can try to time them, you can try to day trade. I'm not smart enough to do any of that because certain pumps have been 10 cents and then they dump. Certain pumps have been 25 cents and another pump was like $3. And you don't know which one it's going to be. So you're like, oh, it's only 10 cents. And so the pump's just starting. I'm going to get in. Then enough retail figures that out, they dump right then and they pull the rug right then, and you're holding the bag anyway. So don't buy on FOMO. Try to buy down below 50 cents if you possibly can, if you believe in this company. Now, that's the question. Should you even believe in this company? Why would you believe in this company? They don't have any revenues. They have a tiny market cap. Management's been a little bit asleep at the wheel. Their offering was terrible. Um, why should you believe in this company? Why do I believe that this company has some assets worth taking a look at? Well, this drug Levossin, and I know I'm probably saying that wrong. Feel free to comment and mock me unmerciful. But I just call it Levo. It's just easier to say. And I know I've heard other scientist types, even smarter than DannyDealz, saying Levo. It's just, it's brevity is the soul of wit, as they say. But the bottom line, this drug has been used for 20 years to treat a specific type of heart failure. That there is no cure for, but it can improve quality of life, can improve functionality significantly. This drug was owned by Orion Corporation, and they are a Finnish company, and they have been selling this thing in Europe for 20 years. They were partnered with Abbott in the United States. The drug never took off. They didn't get through the trials in the U.S. Abbott was selling it in Northern Europe, in the major markets, Germany, France, etc. And then Orion was selling it in Scandinavia, and basically, I think in 2009 or something, Orion bought the rights back for $30 million, and they've been selling it ever since in much of Europe. And while their patents were active up until I think 2020, 2021, they were selling. Oh, and before COVID, I think 150 million euros, 120 million euros per year. And that was for the IV. So, patients have to come into hospital or clinic or whatnot. I'm not exactly sure how that works in Europe, but obviously they have to come somewhere. They're not doing an IV at their house, most people, unless you happen to be married to a nurse or physician or something like that. And even so, I think these types of things are done in the hospital. Plus, these are people with, acute heart failure, so many of them might be in the hospital anyway. But so that's another just positive cha-ching for Tenax is they're doing an oral formulation that's taken daily. So you don't need to go to the hospital or have an IV or risk what is it called? Inline infection or thrombosis, or there's all kinds of side effects that can come from having IVs all the time. It's can be a bit risky, just particularly infection. So the oral formulation is a great choice here. But the bottom line is there are several reasons I believe that this is a good company. First, the market. There's an unmet need. This type of heart failure. Zacks is saying the market, and when they did research on this company in late 2022, they're saying the market's 2 million patients per year. I've read 1.5, so either way you go with, it's a pretty large market because this drug is probably going to cost $1,000 a month, and so $12,000 per year per patient. If they were to get a conservative 5%, as Zach's estimated, they would be looking at about $1 billion a year in sales. If it's 10%, it's $2 billion. That $1,000 per month figure is probably quite low, considering what this drug does and the type of life-saving benefit it could have, and there's no competition, and it's going to be a relatively small drug. So whether you're doing, saying, $1 billion or $2 billion a year, we're at a market cap of $5 million now with no debt, and this is past phase 2. It's phase 3 ready. Um, there's an unmet need. Number two, the drug is safe. It's been proven safe. It's already gone through these trials in the U.S. to phase 2 through Tenax. It's been used in Europe for 20 some years. They know the drug works, and they know the drug is safe. Does the drug work? Yes, the drug works. So far, with what we know, you can see that this drug actually works. They have done a study, and basically, the um, the uh, the authors of the study concluded that, this has shown benefits in a double-blind, placebo-controlled study that no other drug has ever shown, and that's that people with this specific type of heart failure are having, material, measurable benefit to their quality of life, to their functionality, and they measure that in a walking test, and the 6 minute walking test. And um, I'm not a statistician, but basically these were impressive results. And this was a study of 18 PH-HFpEF, which is the type of heart failure we're talking about here, who transitioned from IV to oral lezomindendendendenden, lezo as I call it. There's a reason for that. I simply cannot pronounce these long rhymey drug names. My brain does not work well enough. Why is the oral formulation important? This encompasses the whole reason I think we're going to see FDA approval. When Zacks did their research note there, they put the odds of approval at both of these projects at about 40%. I believe the odds are even higher than that, 50, 60%. FDA, let's look at why I think these drugs, not only have the drug is lezo is so valuable, but why I think it's going to be approved in this upcoming phase 3 trial, if we ever get there. So Dr. Rich was on the FDA advisory committee for many years. I believe he's still associated, that would approve these types of drugs. So he is as insider gets. They have other executives that work for Tenax who also have a lot of experience working with the FDA. But Dr. Rich in particular is extremely dialed in to what the FDA wants to see. The FDA, on for their part, has really wants to approve this drug because there is no approved drugs for this condition. There's an unmet need. It is a fatal condition, and this drug could improve people's quality of life considerably, allow them to function, and not only function better, but potentially prolong their life. We won't know these things until we get through phase 3 and get approval, but right now, all the available data suggests that this drug actually does provide a very significant benefit that you can measure in these heart failure patients, and there's nothing else available. And again, this is affecting 1.5, as many as 2 million people per year just in the U.S., depending on what source you take a look at. But even if you could get, say, 20,000 patients at $12,000 per year, do the math. I mean, you're talking about, quarter billion in sales. You're talking about a company with no debt, and you're talking about the fact that, 10x was granted a patent covering IV, and they're going to be granted another one if they covering the oral formulation, and till 2040. So if Zacks is right, and they're very conservatively predicting $1 billion a year in sales in, as soon as it's approved or shortly thereafter, maybe say even by 2030, I mean, they have another 10 years of patent protection. You're talking about, could be 10, 20, $30 billion in sales during that time at a company with a $5 billion market cap and no debt. And the drug is not some, long shot. This drug has been widely used for decades. It's proven safe. The oral formulation is such a huge benefit to Tenax. The FDA phase two, just for those of you who don't know the basics, phase two was the IV formulation of Levo. Okay, so that's what showed the benefit. And then they did a follow on where they transitioned those patients voluntarily, some of them, I think it was 20 some, as we saw in the last slide. They transition them the oral formulation, and the oral formulation has worked just as well. It's been well tolerated. So they could take a pill once a day instead of having to come into a clinic or a hospital and take an IV once every week or two. I mean, the cost savings alone in transportation, hassle, pain, discomfort for the patient, their family, taking days off work, the cost savings, it'll be amazing. I wouldn't be surprised if they would begin using the oral formulation in Europe and anywhere else they're selling this drug. Why wouldn't they? I know Orion, their patent ran out on the basic compound in Europe, so they've been knocked off now the last year or two by the generics. So of course, their revenue has gone way down from the over 100 million euros it was. I don't know what it is this year. I haven't looked it up. Feel free to leave it down in the comments if you'd like to. Um, Again, it is just to reset the topics on the table. We're talking Tenax Therapeutics. My name is DannyDealz. You are watching Un Poco Mas, the show where we give you just a little bit more, as presented by Hurricane Lopez, executive producer extraordinaire. We are talking Tenax Therapeutics. We are talking valuation. Um, okay, so I believe this thing's going to be approved. The FDA has agreed to use an oral formulation in phase three after an IV formulation in phase two. FDA has basically, um, I think, sorry, my phone's ringing. You can see that. I do not edit, script, or plan these videos. It is basically a stream of conscious coming from DannyDealz that may or may not be useful to you, but it certainly helps me clear my head. And so I will dump some of these thoughts on you, and you can do them with them what you will. But when Zacks did an analysis of this company, they put a 40% probability of success at these two drugs getting to market. And they calculated that um, the assets have a conservative value of $325 million after applying an onerous 40% probability of success. Um, and then they go through and they list all the companies that would want to buy them. Of course, they didn't. They didn't at least do it from Roth, but that doesn't mean there's no deal in the future. There can be a deal for one drug without, a partnership, without actually buying out the company. They can do a deal for that one drug, revenue, some money up front for future revenues, marketing deal, licensing deal. There's all kinds of things that can happen, but basically you have to get this thing into phase three. You have to get closer to the goal line. You have to get out of this penny stock bankruptcy, reverse split, offering, shorting, baloney. But I encourage you to read this Zach's report. I've actually purchased another report that I can't show you here. I'm not even supposed to say the name of the company that develops these reports, but they are quite expensive, even for individual private use. But I have a lot of money invested in this company, and I plan to invest more if they drive the stock lower. So it's worth it to me to purchase some of these very, very respected industry reports that gives an analysis of whether they think this drug, this Levo drug, will get through phase three. And all I can say is when the more I read people that know way more than me about this drug, cardiologists, researchers, people that have been using the drug, doctors in Europe who've been actually using this drug for 20 years. I'm convinced it works. I'm convinced it's safe. I'm convinced that sorry about that, keep getting phone calls here. I'm convinced that the drug is going to be approved by FDA if we can get the trial going and if we can get through the trial. It might take, 3-4 years. It might cost 50 to $100 million, but for a drug that's going to generate billions of dollars in revenue, the risk reward is extremely, extremely rich. Um, Please do your own research. I'm not trying to tell you what to do. Penny stocks are extremely, extremely risky, and basically, if you're going to invest in this, be prepared to lose your money. There is no sure thing in penny stocks. These things can go to zero. They do go to zero, and this stock has a long history of going straight down. I mean, you could see 5 years ago it's lost 99.5% of the value, or 99.9, or whatever the hell it is. It's lost all the value basically. It's gone from what would have been split adjusted $150 down to 50 cents. So that's a tough pill to swallow, and that's in only 5 years. So 4 or 5 years, but it is what it is. Is the stock going to go to zero? Are these drugs worthless? I would say no. But I do not have a crystal ball, and these are very, very risky. They are way pre-revenue, and obviously they've gotten really bad financing deal here recently. Heavy, heavy dilution. If they're going to do these trials themselves without partners, there'd be much more dilution to come. I don't see that. I would like to see a partner step in, but we might have to get phase 3 trial actually started, get some enrollment. If we could get the trial actually started, I think we would be in good shape to get some financing. Show the street, that show the investors that management has their act together, can actually get something positive going, because the drug itself has a ton going for it. The market is great. Then our oral formulation, it just takes it to the next level as far as a 10x investor, because it opens up the market considerably. You can get this. There's every reason to believe that the oral formulation could be used for other indications, other places, other countries. You could license it. You could make some kind of deal going back into Europe with Orion with the oral formulation. It opens up all kinds of possibilities, but we have to get people thinking that we're going to not only start the phase 3, but we're going to get approved for the phase 3. And in that case, I think we're going to look in our rearview mirror as a 10x investor, and we're going to see that this market cap was crazy, and we're going to be glad we accumulated here. However, I have been wrong so far, and I don't know anything. So I'm going to warn you. You would be a fool to invest in this. Invest in an index fund. Only invest here or any penny stock or any micro cap if you understand the risk. And there is a lot of risk, and be prepared to lose your money. Correspondingly, there's a lot of reward. There's a huge upside. Remember, this stock was just $150 a share a couple years ago. Now it's 50 cents. Even if it gets up to 10% of what it was at, $15, you'd make 30 times your money. It's $5 million market cap, very little to no debt. Zacks is saying the assets are worth $325 million. I put a very, very, if you just want to put bargain basement fire sale price, the IMA drug I think is worth $50 million. The Levo drug is $100 million. I mean, even if you say all the warrants, all the options, the whole thing is $40 million, you're still at 3x. The actual value of those assets. I think the value of the assets is at least $500 million. That's my gut feeling. There are no treatment for this type of heart failure, and here we have a treatment that is safe and effective and has been used for 2 decades. And all we need to do is get the right trial going, and we already have the trial structure. It's going to be a single phase 3, one trial. FDA wants to approve it. We have FDA insiders that own stock in our company that are the executives with Tenax, and this thing is poised for success. You just have to get their act together and get the wheels in motion, and we'll get more funding, and this could be a huge payoff. It can also crash and burn, go to zero. Well, that's the way the world works in the world of high risk, micro cap, penny stocks, pre-revenue. I like the stock. And I hope you do too. As far as what we're going to see on Monday, I have no idea. Stock, my gut says, is just going to continue to sell off unless it pumps and dumps. So I don't think we're going to hear any news on a Monday, but I could be wrong. I hope we do. I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. My name is DannyDealz. You have been watching Un Poco Mas, the show where we give you just a little bit more. It's presented by the great Hurricane Lopez, executive producer extraordinaire. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you again on Monday. Have a great rest of your weekend.